Hello everyone, this is the first video in a series where we'll learn how to do financial modeling in Excel. We'll start from the basics and progressively move on to more and more complex calculations as we continue on with the series. And in this video, we'll look at how we can calculate NPV, the net present value, and IRR, the internal rate of return in Excel. I'll assume you're already familiar with these concepts, so I'll not discuss them in details here. However, if you're unfamiliar with these two things, then I'm linking a few sources in the description from where you can learn them. So one of the most important concepts in finance is trying to estimate the value of future cash flows at the present moment. This is done using the present value formula that we have here. So the formula states that the present value PV is equal to the cash flow at time t divided by 1 plus r raised to the power t. So the r here is called the discount rate, and this value is adjusted according to the riskiness of the cash flow. So you'll find more details about this in the links below. So if we want to replicate this formula in Excel, we could do it manually like this. So we take the cash flow and we divided it by 1 plus r raised to the power t. So in this case, t is equal to 1 because this is the cash flow in year 1, right? And if you want to replicate this for these cash flows below, we could just drag the formula. But that wouldn't work because we would have to fix this cell reference, or this wouldn't work. To fix the cell reference, we just press F4 and that we are good to go. So if you press enter, this remains the same, and now if we drag it, we'll get the cash flows, the present values for the cash flows for these years, right? So if we take the sum of these cash flow present values, we get a value that's 1065, right? So these are the sum of the present values. Now there is an easier way to do this, and that is by using the net present value formula that is built in Excel. However, this formula is a bit misnamed. In finance, when we talk about net present value, we also take into consideration the cash outflow, or the negative cash flow that we see in year 0. So you can think of this as an investment, right? So suppose I spend $450 buying a stock, right? And it pays out dividends after year 1 of $100, year 2 of $200. So we just calculate the sum of all the present value of the dividends, but we haven't taken into consideration the purchase price of that stock, right? But in finance, we have to take this into consideration. So we know the NPV in Excel just gives us the summation of the present values. So how does this formula work? It asks us for a rate. So this is the discount rate. And it asks us for value 1, 2, 3. So these are just the cash flows. Basically, it's asking us for the cash flows. So from year 1 to year 5, we select all the cash flows. If you press enter, we get 1065. But this is not the NPV that finance wants, right? We have to take into consideration 450, this negative 450. So, and since this is already in the present moment, so what we do is we simply add this to the NPV that we get from Excel, and this 615.26 is the actual net present value that we talk about in finance. We'll not need this, so we'll remove these values. So that's how you calculate NPV in R. We take the present day cash flow, so the cash outflow, and we add the NPV values to it, right? So we can see it here. This is the NPV values, the series of cash flows, and this B7 is the cash outflow at the present moment, right? Now, calculating IRR. So what is IRR? IRR is nothing but the discount rate for which we would get an NPV value of 0. So, and calculating IRR is actually pretty simple. Excel has a built-in function called IRR, and to make use of the function, it asks us for values, and these are values of the cash flow. Now, unlike the NPV formula, that is built in Excel, the IRR built-in function in Excel can take into consideration this negative cash flow at the present moment. So we'll select all the cash flows we have, and now it's asking us for this guess value. But this guess feature that Excel built-in function has will not make use of it. This is only used when there are multiple IRRs, and multiple IRRs are a bit more complex, and we'll talk about that in some later videos. For now, we'll not need that guess feature, so we'll just close the bracket, and if we press enter, we get the IRR value of 43%. So I was saying that this is the value for this, the discount rate for which NPV will be 0, right? So we can test this. This value is rarely comes to a round number. So what Excel usually does is rounds it off to 2 digits. So it might not exactly become 0, the NPV, but we'll get a value that is very close to 0, right? So we see the NPV is minus 0.4 for a discount rate of 43%. So we can assume that the IRR is actually something like 42.8 or 42.7 or 9, some value like that. And that would give us exactly 0, but since Excel rounds it off to 2 digits, and it's actually completely fine to make that rounded, to do that rounding off, and we get the IRR value of 43%. So that is how we calculate NPV and IRR in Excel. Thank you for joining me. I hope I'll see you in the next video.